Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. In 1940, when this folding table was built, no one knew this style was to become the TV table of the 50s. As a matter of fact, many people still use them. Today, in the first of the special two-part series, Bob and Rick will show you how to use your router station to create your own folding table. That's today in the Router Workshop.
We really got an old table here, Rick. This was one of my mother's little favorite tables because it was so handy to use, and it's old. I mean, this is just cardboard with a thing on it, but it's very neat. And I guess
I remember this table. How old is this table, really?
Well, I think for 1946, so we'll have to make 52 years old or something. So
all right. Well,
it's not a thing, but I was really intrigued by the interior of it.
Well, let's look at some of the details.
The legs in it fold, and it goes back and forth, and it's got a track in here. And we can take a quick look in there. Maybe you could hold your fingers in it. This is a good finger pincher, too.
Right.
Get your fingers in the wrong places here. Anyway, what it is all wood.
None of that plastic and
not really.
tin?
Not in that time.
No,
There
not
wasn't
this.
any.
Okay.
Here we got a dowel stick in here.
Right.
And we got a dowel pin on the other end. And it came down inside of here, and we just lay that down there, Rick.
This thing
Keep
should
your
slide
fingers
down.
out, and then it lays down. And what it does is just fold up and make a neat little table stand up.
All right.
Let's go back and open this up again and talk just a little bit before we start here of the details. See the neat detail inside of here? We got this detail here with a little bit of groove in it. And here, Rick, I'm going to get you to make these dados and do the top portions of it. And I'm going to start with the legs today in here. And see, we've got this detail in here, but it matches that. Now, that doesn't have to be that way. You can put whatever
you can
like
put pretty well anything you want, right?
But I think this is a little different than we've usually done, because usually we'll take a straight bit, and cut a pattern. But this time we'll put a pattern in it or a shape to it, and I think it's better.
Who's going to do the painting on the table first? Is that you or me?
Yeah, we'll leave that to your son, Ray.
Okay.
Mark,
We're not doing anything. There's no painting
No.
here.
We're not going to get involved. We're not going to paint a green either.
Okay.
Anyway, we're all set to go here. You could just take that along, and if you wanted to start on doing your dados in it.
Okay. Do I have those pieces over there?
I'm going to start with these legs. You got everything I think you need there.
All right. Great.
I'm going to start with the leg portions in it. This is our leg pattern. Actually, all I did was just copy the pattern off the old table. I didn't want to deviate from it, but I did take a piece of phenolic and cut the leg out. Now, we need 4 of these legs, and they don't have to be left or right-handed. We've looked after that. But one of the big things with a pattern like that is we have to go all the way around it. And when you go all the way around something, you have to have some means of holding it down on it. So we've gone back in here and we've drilled a hole in it. Now this hole will become the hinge action of it. This hole here will become the bolt action at the top on the one pair of legs. So it really leaves us into a pin situation. However, I've got a pin at one end, I've got a pin in the middle, and we've got nothing out in the inside edge. So what we've done in here is put some double-spaced tape on it. And I put a piece of tape on it, we'll just take that off of here. And that tape then will stick to the wood. And we'll just take that off, and then we'll put the pins in. Now there's a little trick in here as to what to do. I'm going to put the pins in, and then we're going to have a look at it. If you look at this block of wood in here, it's got grain and it runs straight down. But as we make the curve in here, we're coming off here on the grain. Now, if we were to cut with a router bit and come back up this way, we'd have tear out on it. So we want to cut down. And once we do that, we'll cut down. We'll go around the toe of that leg and we'll come back in. And the grain is running here again. So now we're cutting down again and we won't have that chip out effect in it. And when we cut back here, then we're done with it up to the end. The end doesn't matter. It's just a length in it. The pins will govern. So what you need to do to start with, people, is take your pattern and use the pattern that you have in here with the holes and as a template and drill your holes in all 4 legs. Now, if we just put that over top of those pins and fits down like that, snug it down, and we can use your little fine adjusting tool here and just tap them pins down flush like that, and then just tap on top of the pattern. That will get that tape to stick a little good better in it. So now, we got it stuck in. The The next thing we need to do is turn this upside down. And what it's going to do is follow a guide. And I've got a guide in here, and that guide will follow on the bottom side, and the bit will do the cutting. So what we need to do is put a guide in. We need to chuck a bit up, and I'd like to show you the bit prior to chucking it. I'll just lay that aside there a bit. Let me just have a peek here. We've got a very unique cutter here. The cutter that I've got, in this case, I've got a sleeve on it. If you're getting one made up or anything or finding one and you have a 1/2-inch router in it, try to get a 1/2-inch shank. I've just got a 1/4 one today, so I've used a sleeve. The 1/2-inch is always a little better for you. And you'll notice that it's got little cores in here. Those are like a thumbnail round over in it. And I guess you could call it a bullnose bit in a sense, except this is a thumbnail. And it's a pair of them. It comes straight, comes down, comes back, and up, down, and again. And then on the opposite side, exactly the same. The reason for that is that it does that design that we had in it, and it's very unique. Because when you cut straight with the grain, it'll have a tendency to lift it out. But when you have some kind of pattern in it, you get a better advantage of it, and you'll get a lot smoother cut. Now, we're cutting with pine, and pine is very soft, and people say, yeah, sometimes we use pine. Why don't you use oak? We use a lot of oak. People say, why don't you use pine in it? I prefer the harder woods. Harder woods are better and easier to cut for you to work with, as opposed to pine. Our softwoods, and we can look at spruces and pines and things, are very difficult in my opinion. I would sooner have a hardwood to use it. But we got a pine here today, and we'll stick with it in it. So what I'm going to do is chuck up that bit, and I will also put the guide in it. So we'll lift the router out, put the cutter up in place here, and we'll pop it in about like that. It's a 2-wrench system we got in it, so we can tighten it up, and we'll tighten it down. Now, I'm going to put the guide in, and again, we got the guide that goes on the top side. It's a 1/4 inch high, so it sticks above the table. And we'll put the ring nut on it. If I can get that thing started in it. And we'll spin it on, and we'll tighten it down. Make sure it's in there. Sometimes you get a little dirt in that flange in it. And just for a quick look at it, let me just pull the bit outside of it in here. See the cutter inside, and I'll just rotate it. I haven't got it plugged in. Always leave your router unplugged before you do any of these kind of things that I'm doing here. And there's the cutter in it. There's the cutter itself, and as we bring it up in here, it will expose the full pattern. And that's what we need to do. I'll get the height set up here in a minute. We'll set this up inside here and lock it in. Now, maybe while I've got it here, maybe it's a little easier to show the pattern. Let's go back to the pattern. There's the pattern at the back side. That's stationary, the guide is stationary, and that's what will follow in it. Now here's where you get your height. Now the height will be determined by the thickness of material that you're using. And I noticed if you watch Rick lots of times in there, you'll find that Rick does a lot of setting of his heights here. Sometimes I do it in the table, but it's a lot easier if you can see it up on the top side. Now we'll just tap that down just a shade more in here, get me a little bit of depth in here. And all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to center that cutter on it. And I don't know if I could even tip that up here, but when I make the first cut, you'll see, and I'll stop. I'll go a little ways, and then we'll have a look at it. So just give me a second here, and we'll pop this down. Make sure it's locked. Now pop it into place in here. Again, we're going to use our safety pin. One of the things that I could have done on my pattern system here that I didn't do is that I could have extended this straight piece out a little further. That would have given me up to the guide to cut by. But I didn't do that. I kept it back in it, and I'll use the pin. Once I'm started, I'm fine. Now when I come across in here, this is the pattern I'm going to follow. I'm going to go down like this, and you'll watch as I turn this around real quick back in, because that's a real sharp return here. You might get a little bit of chip on the end, but I doubt it. I think it'll cut clean in it, and probably at that stage I'll take it away. Remember, if you need to change location of your hands or anything in the pattern work in here, make sure that you take it away from the bit and then make your change in it. Don't try to change it so much as you're going. If you can't, if you got to take both hands off, that's not a good idea. Secondly, in here, and probably most importantly, you should have a guard on it. This guard is just a shop-made guard again, but it works well. Just put your clamp on it, stick it over the bit in it. That way your hands are kept away from it. And usually I leave it off because you get some of this in it and you'll never be able to see what I'm doing. So we'll leave the guard off on side of it and we'll watch side of it. But that's what it is. And that's just a piece of material in here that's clear. You can see through it. It'll stand up good, and a block of wood. So we'll just set it aside. I'll see if we get some power plugged in. And remember, don't make any adjustments to your router if it's plugged in until you're ready to run, and here we go. Now, here's the point that I was making here. What we wanted to do is be center. And see this little ridge in here? The ridge on that to that should be the same out here. That's where your center point is. But do you ever get a nice smooth cut in here? Now, let me just continue around, and I won't, until I get done, I'll keep going here and we'll cut it. Now we'll change to the next one. You notice how I had a little hesitation? I stopped there. What happened was that pin came out a little bit and just caught on the table. You may have to sometimes, if your hole gets a little bit sloppy in it, what you may have to do is put a little masking tape around it, and that'll help. So now, of course, when you want them to come out, they don't come out very easy. Let's pull them out here with a plier. Now, I use brass pins in it, but that doesn't mean you have to have brass pins. It's what I had access to. Dowel stick will work real fine too, and maybe you want to put a little bolt even in the side there would work as well. Now we'll put this next one back on. And we'll tap it down. I saw that knot when I did it, but everybody asks, what do you do when it happens like that? We've got a knot that's gone in it. What you can do in it is you can square that up, glue a plug back in it, and come and cut it again and get rid of the knot. Those things will happen, and when you're cutting them, maybe you can avoid that in the piece that you're using too many times. That'll help you out. So we'll just take this off again in here, and that pin there is a pretty tight fit that I got, so it takes just a little bit of pressure in here. And we'll lift the pin out of that. And we got one last one. Set it down inside. And I guess I left the pin inside of this one, so we'll have to take it out. Walk it down in. Now, see what we did? Put the pin on the wrong side, right? That wouldn't work inside of it because you've got to keep the tape side down. That helps you locate it. So then you can turn it up, make sure that you get in the right place. Well, there really isn't a mistake you can go if you leave the tape side down. It's going to match. Right? So we'll pop it in here. There we go. And that pin fits pretty snug there this time. And we'll just brush off the excess. This is where you can hook your vacuum up too and suck that off of there. One thing about routing, people, if you leave the chips inside and they get trapped in it and go around the second time, that's when you get a lot of hassle with routing. So try to get rid of the chips. Yeah, we did make a lot of dirt. Let's take that last one off in here and just have a little look in here, and then one more time about that detail in it, because it's kind of important that you do that. Make sure that you get the right direction of the grain. All wood will have grain in it, so there's not much you can do about it. But again, you get a really nice smooth fit in it, and you have followed the pattern. Here's the thing that can happen with your pattern. As you slide your hand in here, you might feel that there's a little ripple in it, you don't like it. Just take a file and file it out of there. But that's a whole lot better on a pattern to do that than it is on a bunch of legs to have fit. Now, this is only 4. You might have had 25 or 30 of them. If you had something like that, you could make a little different kind of handhold, too. What you could do on the side here where we got these pins in it, remember we got holes in here. And you could make yourself a push stick with pins that fit at the top. Now, those pins, they don't go right through. See, the pins don't go right through. And if the pins don't go right through, it leaves you a little pot in here to get at you. You could put pins on the bottom of a push stick, and then your hands would be up out of the way, and with your guard on, you'd be safe to do that. But again, you wouldn't get as smooth a job on this cut if we used a straight bit as we have with a pattern bit.
These are the 2 dados for the track that we're going to put in place, and if you notice they've chipped out a little bit here. I've also clamped the 2 of them together. The main reason I clamped the 2 of them together is so that I can get both dados in exactly the same location. If you can get a small piece here and you have to twist it through, it's better when it's a larger piece. So I'll do these now, and I'll get the other pieces here, put the clamps down, set these aside. The first thing I need to do to set up now, what I want to do is go ahead and put a rabbet in the frame around the outside for the table. And to do that, I'm going to need to set up the fence. So we're going to use the same bit, and we're going to use the same height. The height's set up at 3/8 of an inch, and we're just going to move that fence over here, flip it around. And the first thing I want to do is put what we call a chip break. I've got a fence here with no edge on it right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp down the outfeed part of the table, and I'm going to move it into the cutter. So let's do that to start with. Clamp it down. Get it in a position here, and what we use the chip break for is so that it doesn't tear up when we're going ahead and cut it. It's on the top, so we want to have it as clean as possible. It helps that. So we got that set up. And now what I've basically done, we'll let it stop here now, is the cutter's going in this motion, and it comes down, and it's making exactly the profile that the cutter makes now. So when it comes along and cuts the pieces, it's going to break the material off exactly. The next thing we need to do is we're going to unplug it now, and we're going to go ahead and set it up so that we've got 3/8 height, but we also need 3/8 away. So we're going to go ahead and set the fence up, move it to completely perpendicular, and then I'm going to slide it all out. And this is, of course, done, folks, with it unplugged. We don't want to be messing with this tool otherwise. And it's right where it is, so we'll put the other clamp down now and tighten that down in place. Now what we've got is we've got 3/8 height and 3/8 depth. You also notice this when you're working with these kinds of things. If you've got more than 3/8, you want to stay on the cutting side of the tool. This is exactly a 3/4 inch tool, so we're still on the cutting side of the tool. We want to make sure you stay on that. If you had 1 inch, you wanted to make sure you use a couple of passes. All right, I need 2 more pieces here. I'll bring those in. We'll probably start with these. Move this aside for now, and let's go ahead and cut these. I'm going to slide this into my fence here, and that's going to keep us in and down while we're making those cuts. All right, let's plug it in, and let's cut those pieces. Very nice, clean rabbet. And where the chip out was, we've cleaned it up with the rabbet. Now what we need to do is go ahead and set up the round over bit and round over the stretchers for it. So I'm going to go ahead and move these pieces over here and take down the fence, get rid of some of this the router dust here. Put my piece down. And we'll go ahead and change the bit. The next bit I'm going to put in here is going to be a round over bit, 1/4 inch. So we'll set this aside and bring it out. And we're going to change the cutter here next. Get rid of this 3/4 inch straight bit now. And the cutter I'm going to put in here now, bring that up to you and show it to you, is just a 1/4 inch round over bit. So we'll go ahead and put that in now. Tighten it up. We're going to raise the height so that the round over bit, I just set this up here so you can see it. I'm just kind of looking down here trying to just round it over. Get rid of some of that dust. And so I'm just right on the edge of the profile, similar to the same position that the bearing is. Lock that back down in place. I'm back down. And because I'm using straight pieces, I'm going to go ahead and use the fence here. Run it over. Again, we'll get it set up here with a clamp. Tighten down this clamp on this side here. And I want to zero the bearing out because I'm not going to be using it. So we'll take the block of wood we're working with, run it inside, touch it to the edge of the bearing. That gives us the flat area. Let's just double check it to make sure that I am in fact in that area. And we're close, but not right on. So we're just going to tap it out till we're just flush with that bearing. One more. There we go. Now we're flush with the bearing. We're using straight material, so we're going to not use the bearing. And an in, feed, out, feed, match. Let's go ahead and round the stretchers now. Whoops, need to plug it in. It's time for Router Bits, where we highlight viewer mail and projects. Our viewer project for this episode is Bill from Missouri.
Dear Bob and Rick, I'm now retired from my work and have a lot more time for one of my favorite hobbies, woodworking. I've been watching you for years using the router. Here's how I make footstools. After sizing the material, I use a round over bit to mold the legs. In this next photo, you can see the holes in the legs and the walnut dowels used as rails. The next step is to glue the dowel into the legs and then weave the top. I've found it to be a simple way to make a footstool.
Well, we got the shape of the leg cut, and we also have the detail on the edge, using that bit in there that makes those nice little flutes in the top here. This is a really neat little thumbnail sketch in it. So what we've got now is the 4 legs are done, and we need to put these together here. So we got the 4 legs system in here, and we'll put those up. And Rick, if you've got that stretcher in it, we'll show them how that dovetail works in it.
Let's take a look at this. We'll just take it apart. All I did is drill a hole in the end, cut the dowels.
Put the dowels in.
And these are going to be our hinges.
And those can be a little longer, I guess?
I guess
and then cut them off when you
or catch them on your pant leg or something, no? Okay, we want to cut those off, right?
Anyway, there's the dowel there, people. And if you use that inside of it, and I guess you could turn it on the end, but it doesn't work as well as just putting the dowel, and it is a hardwood stick in it. With a softwood, it'll work great in it.
All right, I think you got those laid out in place.
I'll leave these out in here. Hopefully we got them in the right spot, Rick.
Well, let's just see if we got these holes sanded. All right, that looks pretty good.
Oh,
One. Hey, this is going to work. Now, we got to make sure we get it right.
That goes on the side there. I'll put this side on this one.
All right.
And it'll fit down in there. And this one here is going to go the wrong way, so we're going to turn it the other way.
Make sure, do we have to get the bolts on the right side? Oh, that's all.
Hey, we got just really made
This is going to work, is it?
Just like that.
It'll look better when we get the top on it. Are we doing that next time?
Next time, Rick.
Well, folks, thanks for watching us today, and see us next time on the Router Workshop.
We'd like to hear from you. You can email us at the address on your screen. Send your comments, questions, or project ideas to The Router Workshop, Post Office Box 608, Chamberlain, South Dakota, 57325. Or in Canada, The Router Workshop, Post Office Box 280, Ely, Manitoba, ROH-OHO. To learn more about The Router Workshop, visit us at the internet address on your screen. In 1940, when this folding table was built, no one knew this style was to become the TV table of the 50s. This unique 1940 style folding table was designed with a special wooden channel and dowel slide folding device, which allows it to fold up and down. We'll show you the easy way to make your own folding mechanism next time, right here in the Router Workshop. Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. For $16.99 plus $4.99 shipping and handling, you can order Bob and Rick Rosenthal's The Router, a 130-page book which includes a plan to build the router table and bench, plus numerous tips, techniques, and educational information. Call 1-800-803-1449.